You ever had a Republican try to recruit you because you're over here criticizing Democrats so that they can actually rise to a standard that actually makes us want to be part of the party? Now, you may be tempted, but I'm gonna go through the 7 principles of conservatism so that you know that the Republican Foundation is actually founded against American values, principles, and structures of government. It actually advances removing and basically gutting the Constitution so that we can return to the 1777 Articles of Confederation. What did that have? Reduce government spending, smaller federal government, and no taxation. It didn't work. That's why we went into ratifying the U.S. Constitution. What's important is that a bunch of the conservative platform is formed through originalism. That is a legal theory that interprets the Constitution and other legal texts based on the original understanding of the text at the time it was adopted, which is problematic because if we are adopting the same kind of interpretation as the ones who actually created the Constitution, who didn't think that black people were people, then what type of reality will we have? One that is actually the America that Donald Trump was to make, right? One that doesn't see us as valuable if we are not white. One that doesn't see women as nothing but property. Think about it in this way. In law, if you say, oh, I didn't mean to sign it if I knew that that was inside of the contract, it doesn't matter if you didn't intend to sign the contract. If you had read a provision, the reality that you signed it means that anything within that contract is what you are bounded by. So the fact that have even a capacity to go against a social contract because of feelings should give you a red alarm as to how committed the Republican Party is to the rule of law. Second, their whole principles can be basically summarized under this one sentence. The best protection against government generosity is an engaged and informed electorate, which basically means that the Republicans see the greatest risk to federal budget as the government giving too much to the population, as the government being too generous to the population, which is contrary to even originalism. Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 1 actually positions that once we transition from the Articles of Confederation, which had reduced government spending, a smaller federal government, and no taxation, we would transition into a much greater, much more perfect United States Constitution and doctrine, where this idea will add the inducements of philanthropy to those of patriotism. Philanthropy for who? For the people, but for Republicans, it's only for corporations, and you'll see that. So on the left, individual freedom, we already have some lies. The first sentence under individual freedom assumes that we are bounded by the 1776 Declaration of Independence, but rather we know through Article 6 Supremacy Clause that it is the 1789 ratification of the United States Constitution that is the only thing that we have an obedience to. Remember the Citizens Almanac published by the United States government. We the people have a responsibility of a citizen to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. This includes against originalism if that is against constitutionalism. Federalist 78, until the people have by some authoritative act, that is Article 5, the Amendment Clause, annul or change the established form, it is binding upon themselves collectively as well as individually, and no presumption or even knowledge of their sentiments can warn their representatives in a departure from it prior to such an act. Now we're going to see that the Republican Party actually positions and advances the ignorance of the American population in order to reshape what American values is, but we're going to deconstruct that. So God did not give us our rights. It was actually the 1789 ratification of the United States Constitution because we have a social contract. Social contract is something that John Locke, a political philosopher, put forth. It asserts that the government exists only by the consent of the people in order to protect basic rights and promote the common good of society. But we do not have will of the people. We have will of the people through the Constitution. So if it is against the Constitution, then that is void. You see, over here, they're adding on things that we don't even have a natural liberty to, which includes freedom of conscience. We don't have that necessarily. We do, however, it can be regulated if my conscience is challenging someone's existence. For example, if I don't like LGBT and I don't want them to exist in society, that's my problem. That's not a problem of them existing. If I don't like them, I should stay home. Free speech can be regulated under the Equal Protection Clause. Remember that words can truly cause consequences that we cannot return from. 1994, the Radio Rwanda said cut down the tall trees that led to the immediate unaliving of over 800,000 Rwandan Tutsis in just 100 days. Republicans tell us that we are founded on freedom. No, we are founded on liberty, and liberty can be restricted, including the Second Amendment. We know this because of Federalist 2 by John Jay. Nothing is more certain than the indispensable necessity of government, and it is equally undeniable that whenever and however it is instituted, the people must see to it some of their natural rights in order to vest it with the requisite powers. This means that we don't have absolute freedoms, but controlled liberties. They say that we have a right to own property, yet if you pay in full, yet you don't pay your property tax because say you lost your job, you're going to lose that home, right? So do we actually have property if it can be removed, even if you paid it in full? It's funny because over here they said that we have a right to build wealth, yet the minimum wage on the federal level has not increased for over 10 years. We know that liberties can be restricted because of Federalist 80. The states by the plan of the Constitution are prohibited from doing a variety of things, some of which are incompatible with the interests of the Union and others with the principles of good government. Let's see how much we can do. The second one, limited government. Now it's funny because the GOP wants limited government and the free market, right? That's with corporations, but they want big government in the private life. For instance, they want big government in a woman's uterus. They want big government in the bedroom. Them saying that government must be reduced means that they want to return to the Articles of Confederation where the states had much more power than the federal government. Why? Because then no one will hold the states accountable. It means centering authority and state rights, just not Democrat state rights, but Republican state rights, and restricting the federal power. It's funny because they bring up consent by the governed, but per Article 6 Supremacy Clause, we do not exist within the will of the people, but the will of the social contract. Remember, until the people have changed it under Article 5, the Amendment Clause, then we cannot go against something that is in the Constitution. When government is limited and reduced in size, that is deregulation, that is neoliberalism, so that corporations can have maximum profit at the expense of everyone else. Trickle-down economics. This reduction of government is what justifies eliminating the expert opinion. All motivated by corporate personhood because they're taking care of a constituent, right? It's just not you or me, it is corporations. And they really show it at the last sentence, which is the one I shared in the beginning, that the best protection against government generosity is an engaged and informed body of people. So for Republicans, America's greatest waste of money is taking care of Americans. See, subsidizing Israel's defense so that they can have $600 rent, $900, and universal health care, that is an investment in business. Doing the same thing for Americans, waste of money. And this is part 1.